Welcome to the Combat Sports in Africa podcast. Our guest is BJJ black belt and coach Colin Stewart. How you doing, Colin?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. So the last time we spoke, you and the Ethiopian team were getting ready for the 2022 edition of the African Jiujitsu Championship, which were held on March 23rd to the 26th in Kilamba Arena in Luanda, Angola. So this is a post-championship interview. Let's get right to it. First question for you, Colin. How did Yared and Mita perform at the 2022 edition of the African Jiu-Jitsu Championship? I can't say that word. Give us a summary of their matches and their overall performance, please.
So they did great as two individual competitors. They went in, they performed very well. And the analogy that keeps coming into my mind when I think about the African Championship, and I'll explain this analogy, is that we brought knives to a gunfight.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is, like, Yared and Mita, they were very sharp in their games and in their executions. But there was one country that had a higher level of technology in their jiu-jitsu game. They were more developed, more advanced, and they have had jiu-jitsu in their country for at least 15 years longer than Ethiopia has had Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, at least. And like I said, our competitors, they did well, but there was some very advanced competition, and that was the Angolan team. And at the championship, it was in Angola, so it's easier to have a lot more Angolans present when the championship's in Angola. A lot of African countries had large costs to incur just to show up at the African Championship. And obviously for the Angolans, maybe a bus ride for some folks, maybe even less than that for others because it was in the capital. So they had all the divisions stacked with Angolans, which is great. That I love to see that Angola represented, and got to spend some time with some of the individuals responsible for the growth of BJJ in Angola and some of the organizers. So it was a great learning experience for us. As you know, Garmami, you're more familiar with the three different sports represented at the African Championship than I am. As a fighting style, duo, and then Negusse. So because we had two competitors there, and because we had there was so much commitment on behalf of our competitors to get there, they jumped into the fighting system divisions as well, which we don't train regularly at KAO BJJ in Ethiopia, but a lot of Ethiopians, as you're well aware, they come from striking arts and gravitate towards jiu-jitsu maybe later in their martial arts careers. So Yared, and he's had plenty of striking experience. He's had plenty of fighting experience in competition. So he jumped in to the fighting division, as did Mita. Mita has had less striking experience, but she is maybe just a born fighter. I don't know how to describe her, but in her first fighting match, she damn near knocked the girl off the mats with a right hook and got disqualified.
Wow!
And it was nothing mean-spirited. I mean, she became very friendly with that individual after the competition. And it's a very technical sport, the fighting division. It's very technical, and it was a sport that we were learning the rules of as we were competing, which was interesting. But again, that's not what we trained, and that's not what we went for. We competed because we were there, and there was an additional division that our competitors could jump into, and Mita was all for it, and Yared, he agreed to join fighting as well after, because his jiu-jitsu was first, so he agreed to join fighting. So fighting was great. Like I said, Mita was disqualified from the one fight, but she still placed silver in fighting. And And Yared, he fought for bronze, and it was a very close match for bronze, and he fell off the podium in the bronze match. But for these two competitors not training in fighting, it was amazing that they did as well as they did. And then in jiu-jitsu, which is what we were really there for, the Negusse, both of our competitors, they ran into an entanglement when their competitors pulled guard. Yared and Mita both have good judo backgrounds, very solid judo backgrounds. And the opportunity to put that judo on display was taken away by the Angolans, who all seemed to pull guard. It seems very common for the Angolans to pull guard, which is just in terms of us and having knowledge on our competitors and in the region. It's good to have that knowledge now. I mean, Yared was the reigning African champion in his division, and the Angolans, the previous African championship was actually in Morocco, Northern Africa. That's a long way from Angola, and I haven't looked it up, but Yared mentioned to me that the Angolans, they weren't present in 2019. So it was kind of a very well-kept secret how developed their jiu-jitsu was. I talked to one of their organizers, the person who actually organized the first BJJ tournament in Angola. His name is Flavio. And he said BJJ came to Angola in 2003. A couple black belts from Portugal came and started a couple different schools. And I said, well, how did you guys start your competition culture? And he's like, well, you only need 2 teams to start a competition, and then you can really grow a platform. And it made a lot of sense, but it was also a little disheartening because we have 1 team in Ethiopia. So when he said, you only need 2 teams and you're good to go, I was like, well, we're going to have to figure out a workaround then in Ethiopia. But he said he set up the first tournament in 2003. One of the big things that came out of that for him was the organizers learned how to organize. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's not just you have 2 teams and they compete and they grow. It's you have to have people who know how to organize a tournament. You need to have referees who know how to referee a tournament, coaches. So there's a lot of different skill sets that need to grow. And that was eye-opening for me because, I mean, I'm just a guy who likes jiu-jitsu. I don't have a background in organizing or refereeing. As you come up through jiu-jitsu, you learn to coach. But really what most people want is they want to have their own coach and they want to get better at their own game. And they want to grow in their own discipline. But so that was an eye-opening conversation with Flavio, and it inspired us in Ethiopia to organize our own tournament. But because we only have 1 team, we organized a red team, blue team. We split the team in half, and we coordinated an in-house intramural tournament inspired by the African Championship. So a lot came out of it. In addition to the 3 medals that our competitors did bring home, just seeing what the landscape is on the continent, seeing where the bar has been set by the Angolan team, that was really from my perspective as a coach, that was really the value of us showing up and competing, in addition to some of our top competitors getting mat experience, competition experience on a bigger stage, which was for them individually. I mean, you can't measure that. That's a fantastic opportunity for them.
This is really interesting. I have a lot of questions to ask you about and Angola in particular to what you saw as far as the quality of jiu-jitsu, as well as how the Ethiopian team did. One thing I just want to flag in advance is recently IMAF held, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation held their own African mixed martial arts championship in South Africa. And the Angolans, man, they showed up and they represented and they made the podium. So it looks like Angola is a key player. I mean, they are a key player as well in judo, continentally, and they certainly are a combat sports country. And it's really interesting to hear, this brief history you gave us in regards to BJJ in Angola. I'd like to know from what you saw and witnessed in terms of their jiu-jitsu, what did you pick up on? How would you describe their approach? You mentioned, they pulled guard, they didn't really engage in much. They immediately went to the ground, essentially. But what were your impressions of the quality of jiu-jitsu? You're of course coming in from the U.S. United States has possibly some of the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or maybe Brazil does, but no, the U.S. does, of course, have some really good. What was your impression of the jiu-jitsu from that Angolan team?
So, Garmi, I've got two anecdotes for you that
I'm really liking the anecdotes, by the way. So
they really paint the picture for me for the Angolan commitment to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So the first one is these are both inspired by conversations I had with the athletes, who were incredibly gracious. They reached out to our team, our coach. They were very cordial hosts. They talked with us. They were great. So in addition to just absolutely cleaning up on the podium, they were also very nice and fun to be around. But one of the competitors came up to me one day and he said to me, he's like, how many tournaments do you guys have a year in Ethiopia? And I said, excuse me? He's like, yeah, how many jiu-jitsu tournaments a year do you have in Ethiopia? And I said to him that this tournament, the African Championship, was the first time that any Ethiopian has competed since 2019. And he looked at me and he's like, he was confused. He couldn't believe it. And he said, this is the fifth tournament this year in Angola.
Wow.
So they're battle tested. They have plenty of opportunities to compete. And from what I saw, they took advantage of those opportunities. And there's a big difference between people who train jiu-jitsu and people who compete in jiu-jitsu in terms of how they structure their game and their approach. For a lot of our athletes preparing for this tournament, for about 6 weeks leading up to it, we were a lot more conscientious of the point system and coming up with a strategy for a match within a time frame of 5 or 6 minutes. And for a lot of our athletes, it was completely different. It almost felt like a new sport. One of our members said to me, "Is like this, like keeping track of points when I was rolling. It's completely invigorated me. I never thought about points before. We were just rolling," which is a normal mentality to have when you're not preparing for competition. But when you're preparing for competition in a 5-minute match, if you pull guard and you sweep somebody and you're up 2-0, the rest of the match may be focused on making sure your opponent doesn't score. And if you're not focused on competition style and points, after you sweep somebody, you're not thinking about the score being 2-0. You're thinking about either passing or submitting or mounting or whatever the case may be, even if that may be to your detriment points wise. You're not looking at riding out your points to victory. So it's a different mentality, and the Angolans have ample opportunity to work that style, and you could see they had a very seasoned approach to their competition style. So that was one anecdote. The other one wasn't a conversation that they had with me, but Yared and Mita told me about it later. The Angolans asked them how much the government pays them if they win a medal at the African Championship, and Mauritius, Team Mauritius was there as well, and they shared the same anecdote with me. And they were like, "What do you mean? Like your government pay money? There's no money to be had. Like, what are you talking about? And they said, oh, well, the Angolan government pays us $9,000 if we win a gold medal at the African Championship, 7,000 for a silver, and 4,000 for a bronze. So needless to say, every division was packed, had Angolans in it, and which is great. And you could see them fighting. This is a life-changing amount of money for a lot of people. And they were fighting as if it was a life-changing amount of money. And you could see people crying if they fell off the podium. Some of them were talking about buying a house or a car, et cetera, with their gold medal winnings. So they had all the incentive in the world. They were fighting in their backyard. They had plenty of competition experience, and they'd been competing for years for many of them. And the last thing that I noticed about them was that they really sucked weight to move down to that lower division. There was the day of weigh-ins, you could see a lot of people running around trying to make weight, going down to that lower weight class. And that's a competition mentality that I'm more used to seeing in like the US high school wrestling scene. You see it in some jiu-jitsu tournaments in the US as well. But just when people go down to that lower weight class and they look like they're 2 weight classes higher, you can tell that they really put themselves through a lot of punishment to get down to that lower weight class. And that's what the Angolans were doing. And I'm speaking broadly, saying the Angolans. It wasn't every single person was doing that, but it was definitely part of the approach of folks on the Angolan team. And, Mita, she went down a few kilograms to a lower weight class, to her credit as well. So it's not like it was completely unique that the Angolans were doing it. But the fact that we had 2 athletes and they had 65, you could see it was a lot more visible the day of weigh-ins, watching the Angolans trying to sweat off those last couple ounces to make the lower weight class. So I mean, it really is multifaceted. It's their competition experience. They're seasoned in competition. Their incentive was out of this world. I can't imagine how many folks we would have had down there if they were going to get paid $9,000 for a gold medal. And then just their commitment to physically dropping weight. I mean, that's a really hard thing to do. And then to go out there and compete, and hats off to them. They set the bar. We know where the bar is, and we're going to be aiming for it for the near future.
What, as far as coaching advice, what sort of advice when you got on site, what was the competitors, their demeanor and their spirit? I'm speaking about Mita and Yared. What was their mood like when they arrived there and they saw what they were dealing with? Were they optimistic? Were they nervous? And what sort of advice did you give them during the tournament, during their matches and so on, if you can recall some of that?
So I didn't see nerves. I think that's a great question. I hope you get the chance to ask them that question as well, to see what was going through their heads. I mean, Mita always seems relaxed. She was ready to fight. She did the fighting discipline before her jiu-jitsu, and she just, it seemed like she just was unfazed by anything. She was ready to get in the ring. She was really pissed when she was disqualified. She was really pissed. And she didn't even go there for the fighting. But you could see the hunger inside of her. She was really competitive and she wanted to keep fighting. So that was really interesting. She typically has her way at KAO BJJ with folks. So having something not go her way, she wanted more of it. She didn't want the fight to be over. So that was really fun to see. So I was just talking her back down to be like, hey, we're not even here. You're not even here for the fighting. You're here for the jiu-jitsu. So, don't worry about that. You have another chance. You have another go at it. And, but it was kind of fun to see somebody get so pissed off at a loss. So from a coaching perspective, Yared, he's been there before. He was the reigning African champion. So he wasn't seeing anything for the first time. This wasn't new to him, and he didn't seem nervous. But he understands pressure, and he understands that this is a high pressure, high stakes type of tournament. And you could see some seriousness in his demeanor. But I wouldn't call it nerves. I would call it that nervous energy that's motivating or incentivizing to athletes before a match. It was like a focusing nervousness as opposed to a kind of a fish out of water nervousness where you're not sure what to do or what to expect. Like he looked like he'd been there before. He knew what to expect, and he was using some nervous energy to focus on his matches. That's my outside perspective. I mean, I'm not going to ask somebody that question before their match. Like, where's your head at? How do you feel? Right. Because if I don't get the answer I like, I'm not sure what I'm going to say. But no, they seemed prepared for the moment. Yared ran into, and both of Yared's opponents pulled a closed guard on him, and
like they actually jumped. They jumped and with it closed, and they just brought him down.
Yeah. So the one guy, it was more. I wouldn't call it jumping guard. They more pulled him into a closed guard.
Okay.
But so Yared's a very dynamic athlete. He's super fast. His transitions are so quick, and both of his matches, both Angolans, by the way, both of his matches, he had his speed and quickness neutralized by the closed guard. And he was still able to score points against people who ranked higher than he was ranked. But the closed guard, it was, I can't imagine they looked up Yared's game specifically. Perhaps they did, but both of their matches were perfectly designed to take away the most dynamic aspect of Yared's game, which is his quickness. He's technically sound, of course. He's got good balance, but to just take away his quickness right off the bat, that was a genius game plan, if not by accident, that they had against him. So, needless to say, since then, we have been doubling down on Yared being stuck in a closed guard. Like, he's starting every match at KAO. He's starting inside the closed guard. We worked on a couple different creative ways to open closed guard and to try to gain that edge back. The X factor being his speed. So that's something that we saw, something in his game that they were able to exploit. And that's what they say about jiu-jitsu: you win or you learn. So we're working on Yared's guard opening, and then the flip side of that is also like guard pull defense. We had worked some guard pull defense leading up to this, but Yared, being a judo guy, he was really hoping to be able to put his judo on display. But we did work some guard pull defense previously, but like I said, the Angolans, their competition approach is so sharp. They walked out, they knew exactly what grip they wanted to start the match. And when they got that grip, they were very quick and efficient at pulling Yared into a closed guard. So that's something that we'll be working ahead of the World Championship, which is October, November in Dubai. And we'll keep working that from now until then.
For you as a coach there, this is the first time you're coaching the team outside of the country at their first ever tournament in a couple of years. What was the experience for you personally? Well, what did it mean to be there and to witness this tournament?
So it was a very large stadium, which is one of the first things that was very notable. you pull up to the stadium, they had these bright lights flashing across the stadium. I mean, it was an arena-sized stadium. And when we walked in the first night, they were just setting up the two mats, the two rings in the middle of this giant stadium. And all the athletes were piling in. And I think I was the only American there. They had some Greek organizers, Mauritius folks, a few other folks from out of town, but I walked around the arena, the officials introducing myself, and everybody kind of got a common refrain. It was like, yeah, we know who you are. You're the American. I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. But really, besides getting the guys registered, helping with weigh-ins, making sure that they were there on time and everything like that, the coach is an afterthought. Everything's all about the athletes there. Everything's prepared for the athletes, and the coach is kind of just an extra person that's there. And that's good. That's the way it should be. It should be about the athletes. And I felt very much so that it was. And even the folks that were like, oh yeah, we know who you are. I mean, they were super nice and helpful. And by the end, we're all taking pictures together and everything. So it was a really cool event in that way. And then, like I said, just seeing, like for me, I hadn't been to a tournament as a coach in that capacity before. So just taking notes myself in terms of what people are doing to build jiu-jitsu, what people have done, what the organizers are doing, what the referees are doing, just trying to take perspective on how the sport can be grown or should be grown, to be able to bring that back to Ethiopia. Because like I said, I was always a jiu-jitsu athlete competitor, and I'm in a slightly different role now. I mean, you can't come up through jiu-jitsu without getting some coaching experience. But it's a different type of coach that I am now in Ethiopia than when I was back in the States. So I was just trying to learn as much as I could about what other folks are doing in their environments to grow the sport that I can take back to Ethiopia. And like the biggest thing was like Flavio, he's one of the coaches in Angola, just picking his brain. He was the first organizer of a tournament in Angola. He drove us to a couple of our COVID tests. So I got some one-on-one time with him and just picked his brain about how he did it back then, what the environment was like back then. And yeah, he's very professional type guy. And he was more than willing to share with me his experience. So for me, it was, okay, the athletes were here. We know what they need to take care of. I'm here to help them take care of what they need to take care of. But then there's something bigger than this individual tournament that we need to be able to bring back to Ethiopia with us. There's something that we can bring a piece of the experience back for the rest of the team, because we have 30, 40, 50 people training at KAO BJJ who don't have any idea what this tournament experience is like. They've never competed. And we need to be able to recreate something like this for them, because tournaments are really help push the sport to the next level. Not everybody's going to compete, but even people who don't compete, they either attend tournaments, or they help referee, or they help with the score table, or they help. There's a component to learning that everybody has an opportunity to learn, not just the competitors. And I had a buddy when I was coming up in jiu-jitsu. He started refereeing, and he would go away for a weekend and referee something like 8,000 matches or something ridiculous in a weekend. Wow. And come back. And just watching that much jiu-jitsu, it didn't take very long where he was bringing back stuff to our gym that we had never seen before. And he's showing us things that he saw or that somebody did to him when all the referees got together and rolled or anything. And I remember that being a pivotal moment in the development of the program I was in was just my buddy bringing back new jiu-jitsu for being a referee. So there's something that, my point being, it's something that everybody can bring back from a tournament style. And it doesn't need to be that you're a competitor. It can still help grow the sport in the country. So for my, and that's a long-winded answer, but from my perspective, that I was trying to get some of those intangibles that I had seen before and that I was witnessing that weekend and bring that back to Ethiopia, not just the medal count, so to speak.
Right. And when you guys went back to Ethiopia, you jumped right into organizing an in-house tournament, as you kind of alluded to earlier on in the interview. Tell us about the in-house tournament and how it went and the overall experience between both teams. I think I may be frozen. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I'm still frozen. But yeah, please continue. Oh, yeah, there I am.
So the last night in Angola, Yared and I, we got a couple Kuka lagers, and we were just kind of gathering our collective thoughts about the weekend. And both of us, it didn't take very long for us to get to the conclusion that we needed to get the guys more competition experience. And, in the African Championships, everything's red and blue. Like there's a red corner, a blue corner type of thing. So we said, okay, well, we only have one team, so we're going to have to go red-blue. And we took two of our top guys, not yet, Yared not included. And we took two of our top guys and we held a draft. And we said, okay, here's everybody who wants to compete. Let's go ahead and pick teams. So we just picked red and blue. And then had to do some finagling. I had to reach outside of our community at KAO BJJ. I found a guy, good bit bigger than Yared, but who had a high school wrestling background, maybe 6 years of Greco-Roman wrestling.
Oh, wow.
And he agreed to compete against Yared and NoGi. And one of our team members, Blake, he trains a little bit at a gym outside of town. And they had a couple guys who did some, we'll call it MMA. I don't know these two guys that well, but they do some more well-rounded martial arts type of training, weightlifting, et cetera, cardio. And they heard that we were competing and they wanted to jump in and compete. So we scheduled a couple of NoGi rounds for them. And we rented space in our sports club for the Sunday morning. I was the referee. We had a score table, a couple guys running the score table. We had one of our students is a physician. So she worked as the emergency medical personnel, and which we didn't need, which is great. But we put on a real live intramural tournament, and it went very well in terms of organizationally. There weren't really any hiccups other than some of the roads being closed down for an impromptu event at Mescal Square that wasn't publicized, but everybody got there, and we had 13 matches, and blue team defeated red team pretty handily. Yared won his match against the Greco-Roman wrestler via triangle choke, which was nice to see because he came over my house a couple times leading up to it, and we trained specifically how to beat a Greco-Roman wrestler, and triangle choke was one of those things that we'd worked on. So the concept proved to work out, which was good.
Quick question regarding his opponent. Did his opponent have any NoGi sort of submission wrestling experience, or was he strictly Greco?
So his opponent's previous submission wrestling experience was probably 10 to 12 sessions with me in a small group setting with no real live rolling. He was an American guy, and I had done some classes with some folks in the American expat community last year, but it was more technique and drill based and without any live rolling. So he was absolutely familiar with basic submissions and defense, and he knew what was happening to him when it was happening to him, and he got caught in the triangle. So he was not a complete fish out of water, but he was not as well.
Bigger, right? I saw a picture. He looks much bigger and maybe like what, 15, 20 pounds heavier.
No, exactly. I think he was probably 20 to 25 pounds heavier than Yared, actually.
Wow.
So I considered it a fair match based on his wrestling, his balance, his strength, his size, and then Yared having a submission grappling technique edge, of course. I was very happy how it worked out that Yared was able to submit him.
Yeah, triangle, which is awesome, right? Which is
and that's exactly how we drew it up. It's like, okay, you got a wrestler. You're not going to put this guy on his back. Don't even try. But they do stick their neck out there a little bit. So triangle should be an opening for you. Yared did great. You saw the match. You probably noticed in the video too how excited all the team got, like jumping in. And I mean, as a referee, there was barely room for me to get in there and to call the match. Like, okay, guys, get off the mat. Like, let the match play out. But everybody was super excited for it. And even just like the first match, you had like the guy who won the first match in Ethiopian BJJ history. Everybody was really happy and excited. And then the second match, we got the first submission. It was a calf crusher from reverse half guard, which is crazy to see. It's kind of a higher level submission. And I don't even think I taught that guy that submission before. I don't know how he knows it. I asked him, I was like, did I teach you that? And he's like, no. Where did you learn that? And he'd been over my place the previous week and we did some reverse half guard stuff. And I was like, did I forget teaching you that? And I don't know where he got it from, but it's super slick calf crusher. So that was the first submission of the day. But it was a great mix of matches. And one of the folks from Black Lion BJJ in Sudan, they saw that we were advertising the tournament, and he said, okay, I want in. How do we set up something like this again? And
wow.
One of our former members, Kwesi, he moved to Kenya and he's training in Kenya. So we're hoping to have an East Africa friendly tournament at some point later this year, maybe September, where we invite Kenya, Sudan, maybe Tanzania. If they're able to come to Ethiopia, we'll put on a friendly tournament with those countries. And if we can't get them all together, then we'll invite who we can. And then we'll try to schedule a trip where we get a couple of our members to go and compete against whoever couldn't come. Because we do need to get more competition experience for the folks that want it, because that's what is going to push the level of jiu-jitsu up in Ethiopia. Really, like competing isn't just 5 minutes on the mat. It's the months you spend preparing for it. And then I know you and I discussed this on our last call, but it's the months you spend preparing for that 5 minutes. And then it's the eternity that you spend dwelling on whatever happened in that 5 minutes, where if you got triangle choked, you might never get triangle choked again, because you're going to spend so much time thinking about it and training the defense and making sure that you're not stuck in that position again. So we do want to create more opportunities like that. And if we can't organize anything with the Sudanese and the Kenyans and folks from Tanzania within the next couple of months, we might have another in-house just to get our guys more experience in the next couple of months. We have a couple of guys that train down in Hawassa that weren't able to make it up for the in-house. So we want to set some matches up for them as well. So we're going to keep pushing the envelope in terms of competition. As long as people want it, we need to feed it to them.
That only makes sense, and it's exciting to see that there's an interest in competition, right? Because that's how you develop as a grappler. I mean, you mentioned that not everyone needs to compete. I hear that, but I think the real learning and development and growth, as you mentioned, also happens with more competition, especially for lower level competitors. Quick follow-up questions, and then we can wrap it up. I appreciate your time, Colin. What when you talk about the East African tournament, are you going to be are you guys going to be expanding more? You mentioned Awasa, like there's 50 competitors at the KAO dojo. I'm sure that there's interest possibly beyond that. So are there talks to possibly consider expanding the base of competitors? And you mentioned another in-house tournament. Would this be a monthly series, or would that be too much, or would it be every 2 months?
So I think monthly would probably be too much, just in terms of we have a small pool of competitors, and for us to put on an official tournament, there is an additional cost for us to rent the room and then the organizational time. Whereas if we only had a handful of matches each month, we could handle those as part of our regular classes, which is another option that we have, is having maybe like each Wednesday night or Friday night or whatever, having a super match before we start live rolling, where everybody's there, they're watching. So you get a little bit of that tournament pressure where like all eyes on me type of thing. And then you have the scorecard set up, so you're keeping track of points. And you have like one guy that you're preparing for a week or so, maybe, to come up with a strategy for a game plan for your match. So we can do some one-off things like that on a weekly basis. And I think we'll continue to do that. In terms of expanding our competitor base, I don't know how to find more people. I mean, we have Instagram, Telegram, Facebook, WhatsApp groups, and as you're aware, I'm not super well versed in anything in Ethiopia. So how to grow organically in Ethiopia is outside of my bailiwick. And a lot of the members of the team, they're a lot more plugged in terms of with social groups or like local media and things like that. And they do some promotions, and they all come to me and like, hey, there's so many more people that would want to do jujitsu. They just don't know about it. Like, okay. How do we find them? How do we put ourselves out there? And we've grown, and we continue to grow, but we grow at an organic pace, which is probably for the best. I mean, if too many people showed up at once, it might be hard to deal with an influx of that many people. So maybe that's like what we're doing is the answer. It just needs to be a slow, continued organic growth for a year or two. And then we have so many folks that maybe we have to have a second location. We do have a couple guys that train in Hawassa. We have a blue belt named Menelik, who he's great, and he's very dedicated. He's looking for a dedicated space down there to open a formal academy, but he does have some mats and a training space, and he trains regularly down there. There's some guys I mentioned that train more of a mixed martial arts type of style further outside of the city. I would love to find some traditional wrestlers to link up and cross-train with. But if there are more competitors out there, yeah, we want them. But for now, I think we're looking at most two or three steps down the line in terms of how we develop competition experience. And I think the first step from here is a second in-house tournament. And again, I think it's really important that our organizers have an idea of how to organize an event before we invite guests to come compete with us. So we have one tournament under our belt. It went very well. Having another one under our belt, and then inviting, like I said, some of our neighboring countries to come compete with us. I think that's a great next step. But we also have the World Championship, the JJIF World Championship in Dubai in October, November, and we don't want to lose sight of that.
Right.
And in that championship, I think we have to anticipate that there's going to be very high level belts in each division. And that's going to be a challenge for us. And we have to look at what the economic, we want to go, we plan to go, we plan to send competitors. But the economics of it are also going to be tough for a lot of folks. Whereas if they can get some local competition experience, that might be more worthwhile for some of our competitors than going to Dubai. For other of our competitors, we want to continue to push them and have them go up against the best of the best so they can see what the standard is and continue to aim for that standard. So in terms of looking 2 to 3 steps out, I don't think we're past the World Championship yet. And hopefully before that World Championship, we've got another intramural event. We have a friendly competition with some neighboring countries. And then it would be Dubai would be step 3. And that's where we're looking now. Perhaps we, at that point in time, we regroup and come up with what do we want to accomplish over the next 6 to 12 months? Maybe before that, even we come up with a next 6 to 12 month plan. But we also want to have a trip down to Hawassa with a few of our members to compete against our smaller contingency down there to get them some competition experience. And also for whoever comes with us down there, it's a different competitor to face up against. It's a different style. There's an unknown component to it when you don't know what they're going to do, if they're guard pullers, if they're going to try to take me down. Maybe they compete against each other all the time. They know it's going to start with an ankle pick, or it's going to start with a knee pick, or whatever the case may be. But we want to go down to Hawassa with a couple of our competitors as well, and just to mix it up and get both sides some more competition experience. But yeah, anything we can do to find more competitors would be great. And we do appreciate, I did want to say to you, we do appreciate you doing what you're doing to promote us. Somebody actually reached out to me on Instagram 2 weeks ago and asked about details for Jiu-Jitsu in Addis, and asked about KAO. And I responded very matter of fact, here's when we train, we'd love you to come in. And they just said to me, is this Colin? And I kind of was like, yeah, it is. Have we rolled before? Like, what's going on? He's like, no, I just listened to a podcast that I think you were featured in. So I was wondering if it was you. So you found
That's
us
awesome.
at least one other husband and 2 kids, husband, wife, and kid, I think it was. So you found us at least three students through your podcast in the past couple of weeks. So
That's awesome.
So we do appreciate that.
Hey man, keep doing the great work. One last question for you. Obviously, we look forward to following the story as you guys proceed to the Worlds. So hoping to interview you, and as well as the team, I'm going to try to reach out to them and find a way to interview them. I believe you guys had some belt promotions. Is that correct? Can you give us a summary of that?
Yeah, so that was something that was a little bit of a surprise that we did at the in-house tournament. So we had our first 11 matches, and then right before the last 2 matches were the 2 coaches of the teams, and then Yared against the super fight we set up. We had just on the schedule just a special announcement, and 2 of our members that have been training long before I showed up last year, Simone and Jonathan, and I shame on me, I don't even know when they started with KAO because they predated me. great question for Yared in terms of if you want some of their like stories about the beginnings of those two. I know that they have trained elsewhere. I'm not sure if they started at KAO, but Yared's told me a couple stories about the thirst for violence that at least one of those two had in terms of when learning jiu-jitsu. It started with a showing up to fight type of mentality, and then just the growth in terms of becoming more relaxed and focused on technique, and like to the point where even as a white belt, he was we were looking at Jonathan as he's coaching more than he's training a lot of times at practice, and he's doing a great job coaching. So we don't want to stop him. But it was a good moment, and we had a chance to plus them up, and it was probably overdue for both of them. But there was some travel schedule with both of them in there. And then also they weren't pushing it. They weren't saying like, I want my blue belt. You got to get me a blue belt coach, which, can be dicey. Like sometimes that might be, it's like, yeah, it's well-deserved. You're right type of thing. But on the other hand, like we're waiting for the right moment, or you need to work on this or that. So they weren't pushing it. And like I said, there was some travel issues with both of them not being in town for a little bit here or there. So with the tournament, they were both going to be in town. They'd both done everything that Yared and I had asked them to do in terms of like work on this move or that move, or we gave them a reps plan to work on. So they'd done everything that we asked. And so the timing just worked out perfect. And it kind of just made the in-house tournament that much more special to have a very quick. We didn't want to hold people up. We didn't want to stop the flow of the tournament. So it was a quick ceremony, quick promotion. And I think that they probably both appreciated it that way. But they both got their blue belts, and it's good because you can't have a school where somebody walks in on the first day, gets their ass beat by a white belt, and looks around and thinks, that's a white belt? That guy just absolutely smoked me, and that's a white belt. Like, maybe the sport's not for me. So it's important that when people reach that next level, that you do recognize them and plus them up, and so that everybody can look around and recognize that there's a difference in skill level. And these two had reached that level where we couldn't have new guys come in and see these two as white belts anymore. Well, it wasn't going to be good for anybody. And that's a testament to their own skill and development. I don't say that as to overstate the importance of a third party looking in, but it's a recognition of what they had accomplished.
Right on, man. Well, it's great to hear that people are getting promoted and the scene is being developed as far as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's exciting, and keep up the great work. Again, as I mentioned, I want to follow up with you guys as you're leading up to the Worlds, which is very exciting. So thank you very much for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Gomar. We got work to do, so keep pumping us.
Definitely. Take care, man. Cheers.
All right. Take care.
Peace.